Vikings, let's win this game.
Vikings fans, today is packed with the latest updates. A defensive star went off and earned a league award. On offense, a boomer-bust wide receiver is now on the radar to potentially leave because of money. That could tie into a chance to go after a well-known rival. And there's a heavy decision that's shaking up the locker room in purple and gold. Stick with me because the last one hits hard for who lives and breathes Vikings football. But before we break down every detail real quick, subscribe to the channel. It's free and it seriously helps our community. And drop a comment. What's the most urgent area the Vikings need to address first? Let's go. Harrison Smith just won NFC Defensive Player of the Week, and I'm telling you, that carries a weight you can feel. He showed up against the Lions like it was 2017, except with 14 years in the league on his back. Inside U.S. Bank Stadium, he owned the game. He had a sack. He had a tackle for loss. He had an interception. He got his hands up at the line, and it wasn't just once, it was 2 batted passes. The defense forced 6 total takeaways. 6. And the crowd in purple and gold got that rare feeling of, nobody runs this place today. The wild part is this is only the 3rd time in his career he's won this award, and it's been a long time coming. The last one was back in 2018. That tells you how the league can be slow to recognize the guys doing the dirty work, but it also tells you how high the level was in Week 17. Now, to be honest with you, I got that lump in the throat feeling when the fans started giving him that ovation late in the game, because everybody knows what's hovering over this. We might be watching the final pages of the Hitman in this jersey. He got emotional afterward, and I don't blame him. Some guys become symbols, and he's that guy. And here's the part that blows my mind. He's getting close to 37. Most defenders at that age are rotation pieces or already done. Quarterbacks can hang around, sure, but a safety playing like this is rare. He's flying around, hitting, reading the field like his body is 28. I'm sitting here laughing like, is he really still doing this? And don't forget what this win meant. The Lions walked out of U.S. Bank without a playoff spot. The Vikings defense pulled the rug out from under them. That changes the locker room vibe. That feeds confidence. And when you've got a leader like Harrison calling out adjustments and lining everybody up, the whole unit rises. And look at the milestones sitting in front of him. If he gets to 40 career interceptions, he's in a club that almost nobody touches. And there's still that talk about the 40 interception, 20 sack club. That's legend territory, not an old vet hanging on. Sorry, it's just not normal to see a defender at this stage playing with that kind of processing. He was always one step ahead. Brian Flores praised him too, big time, said he's one of the best and smartest he's ever been around, and coming from Flores, that's not a throwaway compliment, that's a stamp. But there's one detail that makes it even more tense. The next game is against the Packers, and it could be the last game of his career. I hope it isn't. But if it is, I want to see this team play for him, because a player like that deserves a finish that fits. This is straight from the stands perspective, not some cold press release. And tell me in the comments how you feel when you watch Harrison Smith playing at this level, because next I'm getting into some behind-the-scenes offense talk that smells like change. All right, now let's get into the behind-the-scenes thing that's bothering people. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah spoke, and he left a strong vibe in the air about Jalen Nailor. It wasn't that easy we'll see talk. It sounded like this is going to hurt the wallet. And when a general manager starts talking about economic realities, I hear a warning shot. Nailor is the kind of guy who, when he shows up, can flip a game in 3 plays, and then you blink and he disappears. There was that afternoon against Dallas where it felt like he was about to become a locked-in piece. 2 touchdowns, tough catches, the whole stadium waking up, and after that, nothing. Against the Giants and the Lions, the stat line went quiet. That kind of roller coaster drives the crowd in purple and gold crazy. The point is, he's heading toward the end of his contract and the cap is tight. People are saying the sheet is ugly, like tens of millions in the red. That's where the economic language comes in. Kwesi basically said he loves Minnesota, the team loves him, but they'll have serious conversations later, and I heard it and thought, that doesn't sound like an easy extension, and there's more. J.J. McCarthy, with how messy this season has been, actually had a connection that worked at times, and it was with Nailor. I'm not saying they're the future duo, relax, but in J.J.'s best snaps, Nailor was the guy showing up with timing, and that matters because young quarterbacks cling to the targets who make them feel safe. Kevin Seifert from ESPN pulled a detail that really jumped out. Nailor hasn't dropped a pass this season, and even with the offense struggling through the transition to McCarthy, he almost matched last year's production. But at the same time, Seifert also hit the nerve. It feels like he might be playing his final games with the Vikings, and he could be a strong name on the open market. Now here's the part that shifts the board. Ty Felton. Minnesota spent a 3rd-round pick on him, A third-rounder isn't a freebie, and the kid has barely touched the offense, mostly special teams. I know that frustrates people, I see it, but looking at it cold, it looks like planning. Teams don't spend day two capital at wide receiver if they feel secure in that room, especially when there are holes elsewhere. So the question isn't just, is Naylor good? The question is, do the Vikings want to pay for what he is right now? Because his profile is wide receiver 4 with flashes of wide receiver 2, and the market pays for the flashes. I'm even sitting here talking to myself like, please blow up right now, but if he does, he gets more expensive. If Naylor walks, the wide receiver room changes fast, and that directly affects what this offense looks like in 2026. Hold on, because the next story kicks open a massive door in the secondary out of nowhere, and it might be the boldest opportunity of the year. Out of nowhere, a door swung open that I never expected to see kicked wide like this. Trevon Diggs is on the radar because the Cowboys straight up cut him. Yes, they let a Pro Bowl corner go at the end of the season. When I first saw it, I stopped and thought, there has to be a catch, but there wasn't. The report hit hard, and Diggs himself confirmed he's healthy and motivated to join another team. And here's the question for who lives and breathes Vikings football. Does this make sense for Minnesota? Because the talent is real, ball skills, instincts, hands to take it away, but the package comes with two heavy weights, injuries and cost. On paper, he still has years left on his contract, and that looks scary at first, but there's a detail that changes the conversation. If someone claims him on waivers right now, the immediate hit is basically whatever salary is left for this final week, around $500,000 give or take depending on whether he's active. That won't break a team. The real problem is this. Why bring him in now if the Vikings have nothing left to play for in the moment? It would be a future bet, a way to get him in the building and then have a real conversation for 2026. But then the headache shows up. Diggs has a serious injury history. In 2023, he missed a ton of games. In 2024, more time out. And this season, if he plays Week 18, he finishes with 9 games. 9. It's hard to build an elite secondary around someone you don't know will be on the field in October. On the other hand, let's talk about what the Vikings have right now. Byron Murphy Jr. is the only guy you look at and say true starter. Isaiah Rodgers lost ground because of tackling issues. Jeff Okudah hasn't become the answer. And Minnesota has spent years trying to hit on defensive backs in the draft. Seen, Booth, Evans, Blackman, Ward, Kyrie Jackson, and it hasn't turned into that respected group the crowd in purple and gold dreams about. There's been tragedy, departures, guys who never even became part of the rotation, and it hurts to say, but that's the reality. So I look at Diggs and think, is it risky? Yes, but it's the kind of risk that could change the tier of the roster. And if he becomes a true free agent, the conversation gets even more interesting because he could choose his destination, but then you're also battling playoff teams looking for a January boost, and honestly, players like that don't sit around waiting. I'll say this as a fan, sometimes you need a bold move to stop patching the position every single year, and you don't get this kind of stands-level perspective just anywhere. So tell me, would you take that risk with Trevon Diggs in Minnesota, or would you pass? Because the next story hits the heart of the offense and the future of J.J. McCarthy, and that's where this gets really heated. And here comes the story that's splitting every bar, table, and couch in Minnesota. The future of J.J. McCarthy. His storyline started sweet. There was that Week 1 game against the Bears with the comeback and the guts. But after that, the movie got dark. And it's not just performance, it's health. Bill Barnwell from ESPN put numbers on the table that hurt. McCarthy's total QBR was 36.2, and that would put him way down the list if he had enough volume to qualify. And I know stats aren't everything, but you also can't pretend everything is fine when the offense stalls for long stretches. Now here's the main punch: injuries. In less than 2 years, it's been 4 serious issues. He missed his entire rookie season with a knee injury, then came a high ankle sprain, and he missed 5 more games. There was a concussion, and there was also a small fracture in his throwing hand. If he doesn't play against the Packers, we're talking about 25 games missed out of 34 possible. That's brutal. So I'm asking you, as a fan in purple and gold, can you build 2026 on faith alone? Because the defense is carrying water. Justin Jefferson is in his prime. You can't waste a prime year waiting on a miracle. The most sensible read is to bring in real competition. No theater, real competition. 2 names have popped up as perfect fits for that: Mac Jones and Malik Willis. Mac Jones is with the 49ers right now and held it down when Brock Purdy got banged up. He stepped in, won games, protected the ball most of the time, made 8 starts and went 5-3, high completion rate, over 2,000 passing yards, 13 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and his 2026 deal isn't outrageous. The cost is the trade. People are talking about a third-round pick to pry him from San Francisco, and then the debate becomes, do you spend the pick or save it for the draft? Malik Willis is a different style, more explosive with his legs. He can extend plays when the line breaks, and he's coming off a big game against the Ravens, nearly perfect through the air. Plus, he ran for 2 touchdowns. But here's the spicy detail. He's from the rival Packers, and that makes the conversation weird by nature. And if he hits free agency, the price can climb fast because too many teams will be calling. So McCarthy's situation isn't just, is he good or not? It's, can he stay upright? And can the Vikings wait? I'm looking at it thinking, this franchise needs a plan B that isn't just praying. And that's where the next topic hits like a hammer, because when the conversation gets to Brian Flores, the whole thing changes levels. It's not just a player, it's the brain of the team, and there could be a goodbye in the air. Look at what Brian Flores said after weeks of staying out of the spotlight, and it wasn't just what he said, it was what he left hanging. When a coordinator at that level chooses every word, fans can feel there's smoke. He said he loves Minnesota. He talked about his family. He talked about how great the state has been to him. He said there's been dialogue with Kevin O'Connell. Fine. But in the same breath, he pushed the rest to the club and my representation to handle. To me, that's the polite way of not locking in anything. And there's context behind it. Flores had a chance to sign an extension with the Vikings before this season, and he chose to wait. If he was betting on himself, it looks like it worked. The defense became a calling card, pressure from everywhere, disguised coverages, blitzes that arrive right when the quarterback thinks he's safe. We saw it all year. Now, what really hits who lives and breathes Vikings football is this. He didn't say, I want to stay. There was no promise, no grin like, it's handled. He sidestepped it. And I know coaches rarely lay it out like that, but sometimes you can tell when someone has an eye on something bigger. There's talk of big teams wanting to pull him in to run a defense, and there's that dream that keeps coming back, getting another shot as a head coach. He's 44. He's been in Miami. It wasn't perfect, but it also wasn't the disaster people make it sound like, and there's still the story of his lawsuit against the league, which a lot of people think has weight behind the scenes. True or not, the noise exists, but in Minnesota, he got a platform and he used it. The Vikings defense took a leap, and that put his name back in the circle with real force. And when who lives and breathes Vikings football hears this kind of talk, they know it starts quiet and explodes in January. That's where the real fear comes in. If he leaves, it's not just swapping a name on the staff. It's changing identity. It's changing how you play. It's changing the courage to bring pressure at the right moment. I'm sitting here imagining the secondary next year without that system protecting everybody, and it gives you chills. And there's also the human side. He said he doesn't like talking about himself. He pointed the spotlight back at the players. That plays well in the locker room. But it also leaves that weird silence for anyone who wants guarantees. So the conversation is simple now. The Vikings need to keep that brain, and at the same time, they need to brace for the worst. Because if the league opens up a bunch of head coaching jobs, phones will ring, and this house in purple and gold could lose the piece that organized the whole defense. Stay with me through the end of this breakdown, because all of it ties into one picture of what the Vikings have become right now. I'm going to say this straight. The Vikings are living in a moment that mixes pride and anxiety in the same punch. You watch Harrison Smith play like a legend and you think, man, we can still believe. Then you hear Kwesi Adofo-Mensah talk about economic realities and you immediately picture changes on offense, with Jalen Naylor possibly being another guy who walks. Then Trevon Diggs shows up on the market and the fan brain in purple and gold starts doing math and imagining the secondary finally getting a true star. In the middle of all that, J.J. McCarthy turns into a giant question mark because of performance, and even more because he can't stay healthy. And to cap off all that tension, Brian Flores doesn't close any doors. He speaks warmly about Minnesota, but he leaves the future in the hands of his agent and the club. Now here's my bold statement. If the front office doesn't act with courage at this turn of the year, 2026 becomes another season of almost, and I'm done with almost. This fan base deserves a clear plan. It deserves a team that can go toe-to-toe with anyone without needing a last-second miracle. And drop a comment, because this space belongs to everyone who lives and breathes Vikings football. I want to read where you think the Vikings need to be aggressive. Stay tuned. SKOL Vikings. Let's go.